Okay, the first challenge in any TPS or proficiency test or any big study is the data collecting stage. We wanted to collect data in a way that would allow then easier analysis. So we prepared data collection forms. We tried to be not too restrictive on the participants, so it was not completely locked, it was not all in drop-down menus, but nevertheless it was structured. We did define for certain tests how to report on results, for example, as negative, positive, or inconclusive. We did allow participants to provide additional comments, which is always disruptive for subsequent analysis because you have to take special care of those comments. But on the other hand, they did provide us with information what the participants were missing in the forms, and we were able to improve them for subsequent test performance studies. Oh, yeah, maybe I can say that in our case, having organized 2 test performance studies, we were dealing with 230 data sets, which means approximately more than 5,000 individual results that we need to analyze and process in maybe 2 months of calendar time with much fewer days. And therefore, we realized very early on that we need to automate the data extraction from the collection forms that were sent to us, and also the analysis part as much as possible. So we put a lot of effort into that. And we are looking forward to testing this in the future TPS to see how transferable this approach is from these TPS to the new ones.
The identification of outliers was difficult without specific rules to do so. The decision to delete datasets considered as outliers was difficult to make. The identification of outliers was carried out internally, and it was decided to delete all datasets considered as outliers.
One of the problems we had is with the randomization of the samples that we did. It was a bit, could have been done better, so it was a bit of a struggle to disentangle everything and just bring it back to in the right order, but we solved that in the end. But the main problem was for the actual data points that we received, data sets that we received from the participants, is that some of them were incomplete or were not performed exactly as we wanted them to perform it according to the instructions that we sent to the participants. So what we did in that case, if not all controls were reported, or they were not congruent with the expected outcome, these data sets were not used in the final analysis for this TPS.
When we started analyzing the results from each participant, we observed that quite enough of them didn't follow strictly the suggested protocols, but they used different master mixes for amplification and kits for RNA extraction. So we have to evaluate if and how those deviations affected the performance of the test. To do that, we compare the positive isolation control and the positive amplification control CQs for the labs that follow the protocol to those which deviated. Then we establish criteria to decide which data set should be considered valid and which not. We used to do that IPO guideline, reports from of the round 1 TPS, and some publication that help us to define the requisite of a valid dataset. Another aspect that should be defined and taken into account is the use or not of a cutoff value in the analysis of the real-time RT-PCR data, since this can influence the performance of a method. Trying to raise an advice among the participants' laboratory could contribute to the better evaluation of the tests submitted to TPS.
On a few occasions, we had to go back to the raw data provided by participants to try to explain inconsistent results. This allows us to correct reporting mistakes in the final results file with the agreement of the participant.
I think the biggest difficulty we had was deciding which results to exclude, because some labs didn't follow the technical sheet, and some didn't repeat testing if the controls failed. So we did have to exclude some data because they didn't have controls that worked for their testing. It just led to excluding more data than we would have liked to have.
Work package 2 guided us which methods to use to analyse the data and performed the data analysis independently from us, which allowed comparison and led to detailed discussions around which data to exclude from the analysis. Work package 2 also, they shared our code for calculating concordance and accordance, which allowed us to check the differences in results, which were based on initial differences in data exclusion only, not methodology differences.
For me, especially the discussions with other organizers of the TPS helped me to get a better and sometimes different view on selection criteria that can be applied to include and exclude data sets. And that was for me the main point that helped me a lot.
The presentation made by the leaders of the specific VALITEST work packages during summer 2020 and the reports describing all the criteria that should be evaluated help us to focus the topic and understanding the best way to proceed. Some more detailed information was asked later, receiving prompt answer during the final stage of analysis for the presentation of the results.